Himelblau, Robert, first name. I am a supervising district attorney for San Joaquin County District Attorney's Office. Okay, so I think you've known most about this case, and you've either read about it or heard about it or already covered it, and we've already issued a statement on this particular case. So today we had I believe it was a readiness conference, but a preliminary hearing, not a preliminary hearing, a hearing before the trial setting to see if this would resolve or whether it's going to go forward. I believe most of the reporters were in the courtroom. There was a plea negotiation, I think you witnessed at the bench, at a bench conference, and the plea was obviously rejected, and a trial date has been set for this December 2nd on 4 counts of which are all misdemeanors, and they relate to the operating business without a license and essentially food preparation. It's basically a health code violation. So, do you have any questions regarding that? So, yes.
Speaking with some protesters downstairs earlier this morning, they raised concerns about the use of resources at the DA's office, that this is what the DA is going after versus some of the violent crime that occurs here in Stockton. Is there a response to that?
We go after violent crime. It's not, it's not even not a waste of resources. We have a dedicated unit. We have dedicated units to address some of the things that not only the state citizens care about, but the county citizens care about. So this particular unit that has evolved, it's called the Quality of Life Unit. It deals with workers' comp fraud, it deals with auto insurance theft, insurance fraud, it deals with the issues with our Delta, where boats are sitting out there and leaking oil, where large corporations, whether they be a grocery store or another type of corporation, dump oil into our waterways or bury batteries in the backyard or dump hypodermic needles in dumpsters, and also things that involve with food preparation, things that actually affect the health and the well-being of the citizenry, things that are made to be against the law, and we're constitutionally mandated to enforce the law, and this is what we're paid to do. So waste of resources, definitely not.
Are you planning to do any education on these families? Because we understand that it's not only the social media, they do it in some neighborhoods, they do it in church. It's not the first time. So maybe if they understand the law, are you guys planning to do some programs so they target those families to help them understand?
Yes. I did not answer your question. I interrupted you, and I didn't want to interrupt you. Was that the end?
Yeah, I want to know if you are planning any program, education program for these families, so they understand that they are, doing something wrong, that they supposed to have a permit.
Well, wrong. I don't want to use the word wrong, even though it's illegal. I mean, there are many interests involved here, because if you walk across the street to Casa Flores or down the street to Xochimilco, whatever happens to be, or even over down to Moo Burger, all those restaurants are subject to health inspectors to make sure that when an individual goes in there and buys food, they walk out, they're not going to be sick. I mean, we put out the statistics in our previous press release. I was stunned at the amount of foodborne illnesses in the United States and in California alone. And I bet everybody here and everybody who might watch this has walked out of a restaurant or walked away from eating something that they bought at a store sick. And we all remember the huge issue with Chipotle last year. So, I mean, where they still, from what I understand, have not been able to identify where the bacterium came from that made people so sick. So we have issues with E. coli and Salmonella and Listeria.
Contact the front desk. Scott Porter, please contact the front desk.
We have problems with E. coli, we have problems with Listeria, we have problems with Salmonella. However, what you're saying is valid. We try to go out, speaking to the other person's question, we try to go out and we talk to kids in high schools about the issues with gang issues. We talk about kids. We try to have anti-drug programs to understand the problems with drugs. And so we have come to a point in our country and in this particular county where the district attorney's office tries to get out there for prevention, to have consumer awareness. We try to use social media for some of these things. When we talk about consumer alerts, make sure that you're not going to be defrauded by somebody writing about free tax returns, or that there's a phishing, the attempt to hack into people's accounts. We try to get that out, these types of scams to the elderly, through our elder abuse program, which is in the same quality of life unit. When I was thinking about this case and when I was aware of this, I was thinking about, I get most of my education on this by watching the Food Network. You know, I watch it, I cook, my family cooks, we love cooking, and it reminds me of when in one show there's a host will come into a restaurant to fix it. I would say, one every 8 times he looks at the food preparation and shouts, "You're gonna kill somebody, shut this down." I have learned a lot from that, and then from reading the proper handling of meat, the proper handling of chicken, to wash the hands. Where do I put it? Not reusing. I don't use wood cutting boards anymore because it's very difficult to get the bacteria out of them. This is the type of education program that you're mentioning that would be good at in this particular area. There is the ability, and you see this throughout the United States, the ability to have what are called these cottage industries, where not just with things that you find on Etsy where people are making clothing and things like that, but also with food, because there's a lot of people out there, very popular right now, to make artisanal food, right? Whether it's baking bread, or I was going to say craft beer, but that would be a whole different legal mumbo jumbo with alcohol. The problem with this particular area is the use of proteins, raw meats. They create a particular issue. They create a larger danger. And while the United States food supply has been regulated as much as it can be, so we've gotten rid of trichinosis in pork because of the curing process, because of we have done amazingly difficult work keeping mad cow disease out of the United States, which there is no cure for that. It will destroy an entire industry if that is allowed to get into this United States. So going to the local level is a good idea, to go there and say, listen, whether it's raw fish or raw poultry or raw beef, which we still understand that we have to cook raw beef at a particular temperature because of E. coli, even if you buy it at a store. We talk about washing hands to prevent, at this time, the time in flu season, you're touching lots of doorknobs, don't touch your eyes. We do this on the news all the time. It should be done with food as well, because the people who are affected are the most vulnerable people. If you or I, everybody here seems to be pretty healthy, have something, our immune system, we might not be doing too well, but we'll fight it off. The elderly, the sick, the children, their immune system can't handle these types of issues. So we need to go out and prevent this type of activity in the way that the tools that have been given to us. So we don't, as the other person mentioned, we don't have to bring this case to my unit, which is a homicide unit, and have to deal with an involuntary manslaughter and explain to a family, we knew this issue was an issue in this particular jurisdiction. We're sorry we didn't do anything. I'm sorry your child is dead now. And so that's why it's unusual that we would come out here and speak about a pending case in general, because it's not just about this case, it's about the general, because we think it's important for the health and safety of not only the United States, but what we're charged with, the county of San Joaquin.
What about the charges against her? I mean, or the potential charges against her, or what she's facing in regards to, she's facing a set of different charges, different than the other folks, from what we understand, right?
Correct.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, when the so what we do in these normally in these particular cases, non-violent misdemeanor charges. Many times, a vast majority of times, we send out a letter to appear, and the letter to appear allows a person to come into court, not be arrested, no arrest warrant was ever issued in this particular case. Come in court, hear what the charges are, and have an opportunity to get an attorney. And of course, if they can't afford one, they get a free attorney, which is the case in this situation. A public defender, I believe, is representing in this particular situation. The problem is that after this person was told about the situation, she continued to sell products. So not only after the charges were filed, but after she was put on notice that you can't do this. It would have been better practice to have waited for a resolution, understood what the law was, have her attorney explain to her why these charges are being brought, and then find out, okay, well, is it legal for me to make bread? Is that against the law? No? Okay, then maybe I'll make bread. Maybe I understand that the handling of raw food on unprepared, or that the preparation, the individuals buying this don't know how they were prepared. How long was something marinated in the citric acid? What vegetables were used? Were they cooked? What fish was used? What poultry was used? Was the area cleaned? Where is it being stored? How long is it? People have a right to know that, and they rely on the health department to make sure when you go across the street and eat, there's an A sign on there that you're going to walk out and you're not going to be deathly ill. Much more difficult in these particular areas. And so, to answer your specific question, it was the continuing illegal conduct that had the charges, additional charges added. Same charge, different dates. So there were new things that were being done. The charges themselves are misdemeanors. I mean, they're serious, but they're misdemeanors. And the business permit is more serious. No, it's not more serious. The business permit carries, I believe, a bigger time. However, we're not seeking time in this particular issue. So it is it's an educational event, albeit one by one. We attempted to, and I believe we did actually go onto this particular Facebook page and explain ourselves to the people who are on that particular Facebook page. And so that's why in this particular case and other cases, we offered what's called a plea in abeyance. What does that mean? If I accept a plea in abeyance, I say, okay, I will plead guilty or no contest. And we will hold off for a period of time before we make that final. If you just comply with that particular law and complete, not commit any new crimes, case disappears. Just comply with the law. That's all we're asking to is comply with the law.
Now with the holidays coming, is people selling tamales in the parking lots or in the church events. Are you planning to conduct investigation on those areas? Also, they should be aware that an investigation can happen and they can pay the consequences, or this will be treated different?
Well, I'm going to answer two questions at once. You were talking about resources. This was not a difficult investigation. This was just right in front of us. I mean, it would be negligent for our office to ignore it. It's right there. We did not send anybody out there to go hunt people down, right? And so I would hope. We don't talk about pending investigations or future investigations. I don't want to promise that we're not going to marshal forces and go make sure that people are not selling tainted meat and bad food. On the other hand, your question is pertinent in this area. This office and the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Department and the Lodi Police Department and the Stockton Police Department, we have other issues, and so I can't promise that won't happen. However, we have other issues that we need to deal with for investigative purposes. So I'm I have to walk that line with you, and because we don't talk about investigations. It is an issue. Listen, when money becomes involved and there's a business, there's a different set of rules. If you're going to have a potluck, if you're going to have those things that neighborhoods do where they have cookie exchanges at the office and things like that, that's different. If you go over to your friend's house or your family's house and bring over potluck and you walk out, you get sick, okay, the health board is not going to come down to you, but this is a for-profit business, and for-profit businesses are treated differently. I can have friends over to taste this new great bottle of wine I have. I can't sell it. I can't have people come over and have a makeshift bar, regardless of whether I call it a cottage industry or not. Regardless of whether I make great artisanal beer in my garage, I can't now invite people in there and sell liquor to people or alcohol to people. It's a similar situation. The aspect here, though, is health. It would be a horrible tragedy for someone to become violently ill or worse, die. And that is not a apocalyptical statement I'm making. People die. People die from these types of things. Famous people die. People who have had, I can't recall the baseball player whose son died of eating at a fast food restaurant because of the huge E. coli outbreak in, I believe, 1994. I believe it was Jack in the Box. His son died.
What penalties is she facing?
The maximum here is a misdemeanor. Maximum misdemeanors are broken into two sections. One is a year in county jail or 6 months in the county jail. The way plea negotiations go is that we recommend a particular charge. The judge obviously has the final say. So for example, if we say we want 1 year in the county jail at a particular time, the judge can say, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to sentence this person to a year in the county jail. That's not what we've offered at this particular time. So that's what the negotiation is. That we make an offer, and the judge has to put his seal of approval on it. So as I said before, the offer was not jail time. The offer was what's called plea in abeyance and community service. And possibly, if we think about it, and the judge fashions it, possibly it could be some type of educational community service, where they go to particular places. And this stuff should be taught in home ec in high schools. I mean, foodborne allergies and foodborne disease is a big deal.
So how does the county?
Wait, I'm sorry. She was first.
How much community service was offered from the DA's office?
I believe it was 80 hours. I believe 80 hours.
And what was the response from the public defender?
I believe it was. I think it was nothing. But it was. It's not the. It's. I hate to say from the public defender. It's one unit. So and it's a package deal. So I don't want to break down to what occurred at the bench. It was plea negotiations are private, and I don't want to invade their. If they want to talk about it, they can talk about it. But I don't feel comfortable talking about it, invading their decision making process. I'm sorry. You're.
Honestly, so plea negotiations are private, so we won't know what they put on the table, what their offer was.
Not from us.
No.
We don't. I'm sorry. We don't like to discuss these types of things because, normally plea negotiations aren't discussed, and I don't want it ever to appear in any situation. This situation is no less that we're trying to put pressure using the media to put pressure on her to accept the plea or to denigrate her attorney or denigrate her for not accepting it. She has an absolute right to go forward and put her case before the jury and have the 12 citizens from San Joaquin County say yay or nay. Did this crime occur or didn't it? So I don't like talking about plea negotiations because whether she rejected or not doesn't really impact us at all.
Out there and prevent this from happening again. I mean, like the reporter from the University had mentioned, there are a number of immigrant families, or not even immigrant families, but a number of families who cook and sell their food, but they don't necessarily know the law, which I know is not an excuse in itself, but how do we prevent this from happening again?
Well, see, that's what we attempted to do. We attempted to say that this is not the case. that you can't do this, that this is not the law. We attempted to do that with this particular group in particular. Now, I would hope, and this is one of the reasons we're doing this, and maybe you go back to your producers and say, hey, listen, let's not just talk about this. And you're right, it's not immigrants. It's not ethnic born. I mean, I might have sounded flip. I'm not being flip. There are a lot of artisanal people. There are a lot of people out there who, from Vermont to the hills, to Berkeley, to Los Angeles, who are doing all sorts of different foods and wanting to be in what's this new term called the shared economy, for a variety of reasons. Maybe because they just like it, or maybe because they need to get some extra money. I would hope that this type of dialogue that you've generated with our office is able to go back and not only say, you have to understand, we don't want you to go out and say, this is against the law, stop it. We don't want you to say that. We want you to explain why it's against the law. We want you to explain you might become ill. You might make other people come ill. And talk to a civil attorney. Don't talk to a civil attorney about what would happen if someone got sick. Is she bonded? Is she insured? Is she a renter? Or does she have, or he have house insurance? How many people can take a bite of that apple if 6 people get sick? Will she now be, or he be, destitute because their house has been taken away because they've been sued? I mean, and I would imagine that people are just making food, don't want anybody to get sick, and they certainly don't want anybody to die. So we can't, just really can't take it lightly. And people cooking at home when they're looking for Thanksgiving and dealing with turkey, you know, you put on those dramatic photographs of how not to deep fry a turkey. Don't put a frozen turkey in because you'll blow up your house. Well, handling raw turkey and putting it in brine and making sure that the difference between stuffing a turkey and not stuffing a turkey, which is more dangerous because it doesn't allow the bacteria that we're talking about to be cooked off. That should be something that we should be talking about too. Because this drives up, not only do people get injured, this drives up health costs. This has a domino effect. And so we're not trying to prevent people from cooking or sharing or doing potlucks or anything like that. And we're not saying that this is wrong, you're a wrong, bad person. We're saying, please stop this, you're going to hurt somebody.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the 4 misdemeanor charges she's facing?
Sure, you want me to read the actual?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank
All
you.
right. It's your mic that's preventing me from doing this.
Noted.
Okay, I want to give you the actual charges. That way, if you go back, you can actually look up the wording of the
Exactly.
language. Okay, so count 1.
We're still rolling.
Okay, count 1 is operating a food facility without a valid permit. So these are the permit aspects. Those would be 2 counts, count 1 and count 3, right? The date for count 1 is on or about December 3rd, 2015. Okay, I think that's the one that's been written about. The 3rd count is July 22nd, 2016. That's count 3. That's also operating without a food permit. Count 2 is engaging in a business without a permit to sell under this particular code section. And that's the section 6071 of the tax code. I didn't want to get into income and tax code and stuff like that, but that's out here. And then the other, and that was, I'm sorry, and that was on December 3rd, 2015. And then the engaging in business without a permit to sell is again on July 22nd. So 2 counts, I'm sorry, 2 charges, 4 counts on 2 separate days.
Thank you.